The siege, while the broader operation lasted 4.5 months. The most intense 23-day siege occurred from July 1st to July 23, 1970. South Carolina State Museum, 301 Gervais Street, Columbia, SC begins at the state's largest comprehensive museum, housed inside the historic Columbia Mills building. You will explore for expansive floors featuring South Carolina's art, natural history, science, and technology. The act of valor must take place under one of three specific combat conditions. The operational context requirements are against an enemy of the United States during military operations, involving conflict with an opposing foreign force, while serving with friendly foreign forces engaged in an armed conflict against an opposing armed force, where the U.S. is not a belligerent party. A trench spike is a specialized, close-quarters combat weapon heavily utilized during the brutal hand-to-hand fighting. These weapons were specifically designed to navigate the confined, chaotic spaces of enemy trenches where long rifles and bayonets were too unwieldy to use effectively. The legend of Oscar Marion. An enslaved servant is believed to have accompanied Francis Marion, the Swamp Fox, while Marion fought the British during the Revolution. His volunteer service of 7 years far exceeded the average enlisted soldier's time on duty, and his combat experience was intense. The Confederate War-American Civil War in South Carolina took place from December 1860, when the state seceded, to April 1865. Active warfare in the state began with the bombardment of Fort Sumter in Charleston on April 12, 1861, and concluded in the spring of 1865 as Union forces pushed through during the Carolinas campaign. South Carolina was the first state to secede from the Union, doing so on December 20, 1860. The first shots. The opening engagement of the war occurred on April 12, 1861, when Confederate forces fired on U.S. troops at Fort Sumter. Charleston Harbor saw nearly 4 years of ongoing sieges and naval blockades, including the famous assault on Fort Wagner by the 54th Massachusetts Regiment in July 1863. Sherman's March. Union General William T. Sherman's destructive Carolinas campaign swept through the state from February to March 1865. Culminating in the capture of Columbia on February 17, 1865. Stede Bonnet c. 1688 to 1718, and Richard Worley died 1718 were two distinct, real-life pirates active during the golden age of piracy. Both operated along the American East Coast and Caribbean, and both of their pirating careers were brought to an end in South Carolina. Thomas Sumter, August 14, 1734, June 1, 1832, was a prominent American Revolutionary War patriot general, planter, and politician from South Carolina. The only surviving Blakeley guns. The salvage of the Georgiana yielded to incredibly rare type to Blakeley guns manufactured in Liverpool, England. These are widely recognized by maritime historians as the only surviving examples of their specific type in existence. At the start of the American Civil War, the Palmetto Guards, a prominent antebellum volunteer militia company from Charleston, South Carolina, wore a highly distinct and stylized uniform that reflected the flashy, non-standardized aesthetic of elite pre-war militia units. The rallying cry, "Remember the Maine, to hell with Spain," drove South Carolina and the nation into the Spanish-American War in 1898, following the mysterious sinking of the U.S. battleship in Havana Harbor. The conflict served as a major turning point that propelled the United States onto the global stage. An original 1891 U.S. Army model dress helmet belonging to a lieutenant colonel is a rare and highly collectible piece of military headgear. During this era, the military utilized distinct, elaborate headwear for full dress ceremonies and parades. Now more guns. These are a nice collection. I wonder how many of these would still fire if loaded. Technical specifications: caliber .3006 Springfield 7.62 x 63 mm operation. Recoil operated, automatic closed bolt rate of fire, 450 to 600 rounds per minute. Muzzle velocity, 2,800 feet per second. 853.6 meters per second. Feed system, 250 round woven fabric belt. Total weight, over 100 pounds, 47 kilograms including the gun body, 32.6 pounds empty. Full water jacket, tripod, and ammunition. World War II was the largest and deadliest conflict in human history, lasting from September 1, 1939, to September 2, 1945. The global war involved over 50 nations and split the world's major powers into two opposing military alliances, the Allied powers and the Axis powers. An estimated 60 to 85 million people lost their lives, the majority of whom were civilians. Flintlock muskets, rifles, and pistols were the dominant firearms used during the Revolutionary War era, 1750 to 1840. The 1840 and 1870 witnessed the most rapid transformation in firearms history, shifting from smoothbore flintlock muskets to advanced breech-loading and repeating metallic cartridge weapons. The 1870 to 1900 period was one of the most explosive eras in firearms history, marking the transition from black powder, single-shot weapons to early repeating arms and smokeless powder technology. The Yokosuka D for Y1 vertical stabilizer tail 01070 was captured from a type-to-carrier reconnaissance. The Cold War was a period of intense geopolitical, ideological, and economic rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union. The Korean War was an armed conflict fought on the Korean Peninsula from June 25, 1950, to July 27, 1953, serving as the first major proxy war of the Cold War. The war began when Communist North Korea invaded South Korea. The Vietnam War was a protracted, highly divisive military conflict lasting from November 1, 1955, to April 30, 1975, that resulted in the reunification of Vietnam under a communist government. The war pitted the communist government of North Vietnam and its southern guerrilla allies, the Viet Cong, against South Vietnam and its principal superpower ally. Marine PFC Robert R. Garwood was officially held until 1979, captured in 1965. He did not return to the United States until March 22, 1979, after finally managing to pass a note to an American oil worker in Vietnam. He was subsequently court-martialed and convicted by the Marine Corps for collaborating with the enemy. The Hughes AIM for Falcon was the first operational guided air-to-air missile adopted by the United States Air Force, developed by Hughes Aircraft Company starting in 1946. The solid-fuel supersonic weapon officially entered operational service in 1956. The 169th Tactical Fighter Group, now designated as the 169th Fighter Wing, is a prominent unit in the South Carolina Air National Guard, known as the Swamp Foxers. They are stationed at McEntire Joint National Guard Base in Eastover, South Carolina, just outside of Columbia. Switching gears now, let's explore the water side of the Civil War. H.L. Hunley, also known as the Hunley, CSH Hunley, or CSS Hunley, was a submarine of the Confederate States of America that fought in the American Civil War. Hunley demonstrated the advantages and dangers of undersea warfare. She was the first combat submarine to sink a warship USS Housatonic, although Hunley was not completely submerged, and following her attack was lost along with her crew before she could return to base. Got some pretty tight quarters, bro. The flag commonly recognized today as the Confederate flag is actually the battle flag of the Army of Northern Virginia, originating as a military standard during the Civil War. It is now widely recognized as a symbol of white supremacy, slavery, and hate by civil rights organizations like the Anti-Defamation League. Historical context during the American Civil War 1861 to 1865. The Confederacy went through 3 official national flags: the Stars and Bars 1861 to 1863. The Napoleon 12-pounder and the Parrot rifle were 2 of the most significant and heavily utilized artillery pieces during the American Civil War, including the closing campaigns of 1865, while the Napoleon was a smoothbore bronze field gun. The Parrot rifle was a cast-iron piece known for its distinct reinforcing band and pinpoint accuracy at long ranges.